Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have a really incredible guest today. Skye Brown has so many stories to share to really bring light to the horrific industry that is celebrity, and acting, dancing. Molly was an aspiring actress. She was a model. She was a singer with an incredible voice. And she also had a very scary run-in with Ghislaine Maxwell, and also by the skin of her teeth, really escaped the horrors of Jeffrey Epstein's island. So welcome, Molly. So great to meet you. And I'm excited for everybody to hear your stories, not just to hear salacious details, but to really understand what goes on in these industries and how young girls are targeted, how they're manipulated, and how dangerous it really can be, and how parents need to do what your parents did, need to be more proactive and really, really listen and pay attention to what's going on. So you were sharing with me before I started the recording about a lot of different incidences.
Of opportunities.
Yeah, opportunities, as they put it, that had come your way. But first, let's dive in first to the incident with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Sure.
A lot of my viewers are very interested in that story. They want to see justice be done, and so let's start there.
Well, I can only imagine that the underground, it's all connected, and that was her playground. So for me coming out with all my other stories, they connect to the circus that we're standing on, and it's right under our nose, and it's absolutely disgusting and global. And there's just a lot to wrap your brain around. So when I was 14, I was babysitting quite a bit. That was the only job I was allowed to have, obviously, as a child, other than singing and acting and the modeling, with my parents' supervision. And we had moved to Jupiter, Florida, from California at that time, moving from Santa Cruz area to the Jupiter Palm Beach area. And I was just babysitting in the neighborhood at the time and starting out at Jupiter High School as a freshman there. And there was no gym at the high school. It was very old. It was before they've now constructed a beautiful high school there. But at the time, I was told if you wanted to work out at a gym, you could go to the Jupiter gym, which was near the movie theater and the Bell's Outlet in Jupiter. And the Bell's Outlet is still there. The gym, ironically, is called Palm Beach Elite Gym now, which pretty interesting choice of words there. So I found out that we could work out at that gym. I got a free pass for the summer. And then obviously I couldn't afford a membership there. It was expensive. So I found out that if I worked in their childcare area, their little nursery area, that I could get a free membership to work out during the week. I was considered an employee then at this point. So, and for really young children, 14, 15 years old, you could only work a couple of hours a week. So I would work just on the weekend in the morning. I think it was like an 8 to noon block that I would just hang out in the childcare, watch Disney movies with the kids, and hang out while their parents were in the gym. And then afterwards, I would go work out for an hour or two and then go home. So I was after my shift at that time and working out in the cardio section that was by the window of the front part of the gym. All the, the other equipment's like, far in the back of the gym, the childcare's on the other side of the gym. And then when you walk in, there's the service desk, the customer service desk. So I was on, I thought I was on an elliptical. It's been brought to my attention the elliptical wasn't invented till 1995. I went to the gym from 92 to almost 2000. So at some point I was on elliptical. I couldn't use the walking, the running thing because of my disabilities. I can't have high impact. So why I said I was on an elliptical, it was a stair climber. I knew I was on something that was very low impact because it was all the doctors would ever say I could do. So I was on this stair climbing machine Yeah, I was on the stair climbing elliptical type machine, reading a V.C. Andrews book. And when I was in the gym for the childcare, I would always wear a giant t-shirt over my workout clothes, just so I didn't look inappropriate with the children. I didn't need to be looking like that. So I took my big t-shirt off, was up by the front there, young, fit body. And I wanted to be able to see, the parts that I needed to work on for modeling, where I needed to tone up quite a bit more. So I was exposing quite a bit more at that time. I was reading a V.C. Andrews book, and I saw the corner of my eye. And as a childhood sexual assault and stalking survivor, I have learned to always have my peripheral vision going at all times so that I'm never surprised attacked. Yeah. So I saw this woman walk by the corner of my eye with dark hair. She looked very Palm Beach, socialite look. And she stopped abruptly, looked me up and down through the glass, and then proceeded to keep walking. And I had a speculation that she was going to come talk to me, because I've been talked to many times, from legitimate things that pan out to, I don't know who that guy was. So she goes into the gym, she goes up to the service desk, and she mouths to them, I'm not going to be here long. I just want to talk to this girl. She points over to me, and then they're like, okay, they wave her on. So she walks towards me, and she's walking straight towards me. And I'm just trying to pretend like, oh, I don't know, you're coming towards me. And she comes up and she introduces herself. She's Ghislaine, and she's a modeling scout. And I have the look. How old am I? And I told her I was 14 or 15, whatever it was at the time. And she goes, oh my gosh, you look so much older. You could easily pass for 18. And then she said, I'm a modeling scout. I have connections with international modeling, Victoria's Secret. So what she said to me was international travel, massages, Victoria's Secret's connections. And I remember thinking, what do massages have to do with that? I thought I was getting massages. I figured I was getting, that's how they keep their models limber. Yeah. Trying to put the math together in my head of, okay, international travel, I'm getting a massage on a plane to limber me up for the runway. It was just not making sense. But at the same time, I was like, listen, in my head, I'd already been told by doctors. I was born and I had experimental surgeries on my legs. I was in traction and a full body cast for a long time, from the ages of 1 to 3, in and out of these surgeries, tractions, and body casts at the children's hospitals in California. So I already knew my limitations and I'd been vetted by plenty of model scouts and legit agencies saying she is not real model material, not catwalk or runway anyway. She could probably do print. That was more my focus, was print. So when she was offering me these international runway things, of course I'm like, oh man, that sounds amazing, because I love the Victoria's Secret girls. I think they're gorgeous, and it's amazing to just, do that stuff. But I didn't want to disappoint her and tell her I'm crippled. So I just kind of kept it to myself, and I'm relieved I didn't, because from what I've heard is she'll use anything. And some people that are not perfect are sacrificed. And I know friends who are survivors of satanic ritual sexual abuse from their childhood. So I know that there's a market for that. I know that exists. I know that there are 9 billion people on this planet, and a lot of them are really freaking messed up. Yeah. So for us to sweep it under the rug and be like, that's too absurd. Go there. Read our history books. Yeah. It's been going on for ages, this sacrificing of children or virgins or whatever this thing is. That's disgusting. Anyway, she gave me her card. I was just polite and hung on to it. I brought it home. And again, this is another circumstance. I just didn't tell my family. I felt it was an irrelevant approach. I didn't at the time know she was a predator until years later, when, stories started coming out and visions started coming out of her visuals. And I was like, dude, that was that weird lady who approached me when I was really young at the gym. And I remember her.
When do you think it was that you first realized who she was? Was it?
I'd say a year ago. A year ago is when I really put the pieces together, because I remember the encounter of this woman coming into the gym and recruiting me, but I didn't even realize it was her at the time so last year I was working with a book coach. My book coach is, her father was a serial killer and rapist, a murderer. Her father was the happy-faced murderer. And she and I found each other, and she's been a wonderful mentor of, how to come out and how to stay safe, because people are attacking her relentlessly too. And she's just, rise above it. We got to get this out. We have a purpose. We've got stories. We've got to save the people who are, not a part of this yet. And then clear the air and get some justice for, all the stuff that's going on still. So she'd been helping me all last year to try to get my story together, to write my book. And even at the time, I was like, I don't know what my focus is on this book, because I had a intense spiritual encounter presence a couple of years ago, encouraging me to come forward with all of this. And I wasn't even aware at the time that it was linked into all of this. And I was scared that my book was just about this guy that stalked me and raped me as a child. And I was like, I really don't want my book to just be a rape book. I think it's disgusting. I kind of just put it on the back burner, and I wrote out all the chapter points. And while we were going through them, she was like, write down all the points you can think of where predators were coming at you. And that's how I remembered Ghislaine, by going through bit by bit of all of these, remembering all of these situations where I was given these opportunities to do things where I would meet these sexual predators that had their own agendas. Yeah. And that's how I started to jog my memory, putting the two together. And I started calling around, and I reported her. I know the outlets say I reported the FBI last year. I don't know why they're saying last year. It was just several months ago. It was beginning of the plague that I was like, well, what are we going to do? We're in quarantine. All right, I'll call the FBI finally and tell them about this, because I wasn't sure who to call, what department to call. I'd called the FBI before, and I couldn't figure out who to get in touch with. It just didn't seem like it was a clear route to get any kind of information anywhere.
Yeah.
And then some girlfriends gave me some direct links and were like, here, try this number, speak to this person. So I did, and I told them about the Ghislaine thing, and I told them about the Dolphins game, the owner's son trying to recruit me and then sexually attacking me when I met him for opportunities.
Yeah, can you shared that story with me. I think it's important for people to hear, because he appears to be also tied to Jeffrey Epstein. So
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
That's why I'm coming out, because these people must all know each other. Yeah. And they're procuring girls for these people and setting up events using models that, I come in and I'm not one of these recruiters or prostitutes. I'm an actual model. And then I'm hearing I'm supposed to be having sex with people in order to win the pageant or win the contest or win the debutante ball. And I'm like, first of all, no. And second of all, dude, my whole family is here and I'm a child. Yeah. And it was just horrifying. So the thing with Ray Huizinga, the owner's son, the owner of the Dolphins' son, when I was in high school, sophomore and junior year, I think it was just my junior year, I really got a lot of really cool opportunities. So I was able to, through my real opportunities, right? I had a vocal coach. So I had a wonderful opera singing vocal coach that was working with me weekly. I think almost since my freshman year. So, and I worked with her for many, many years because she was legitimate. She had an amazing career herself, and she worked with children as vocal coaches. And she was telling me to get into more pageants. She was telling my mom to get into some pageants, just to experience and experiment, and not experiment, but experiences, opportunities, get opportunities to talk and be seen and refine myself. Yeah. So we listened to her, and she also suggested to reach out to the Marlins. She had contacts with the Marlins for her girls to be singing the national anthems. So that's how we reached out to the Marlins, and we spoke with whomever their talent coordinator was there, got in touch with me, and I sang twice for the Marlins. They wrote me a letter of recommendation. They said, because my mom wanted me to then sing for the Dolphins. My voice instructor at the time, Demetra, had suggested to try to go for the Dolphins as well. And that terrified me. I thought that was really a huge audience, and I wasn't too sure about that yet. So I worked at a recording studio at this time as well in Jupiter, and the engineer, the owner of the place, would make me little pageant tapes that were cut down to the 2 or 3 minute. They had to be exact time. You could not go over. You were literally disqualified.
Yeah.
So he would make little performance tapes for me because I would sing Little Mermaid or Pocahontas. I would usually perform Disney songs because I used to actually tour the elementary schools and perform Disney songs for their schools, my girlfriend and I, that I met through this vocal coach. So we would get off-school credit and assignment, and then we also made $50 each as teenagers to have our own little singing show. It was really cute. Cool. So my mother sent out the tape to the Dolphins, and within a few days, I got a call at the recording studio, and I just happened to be out running an errand for my boss, and he called me on the car phone. And this was, car phones were not huge at this time. Not everyone had car phones or cell phones or anything. So my boss called the car phone, and he said, when you get back, I want you to know Ray Huizinga has personally called you from the Dolphins to speak with you about singing. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding already? Someone's responded. So I get back to the office. I'm so excited. I sit down, I call back Ray. And that's when he tells me that he swiped my headshot off of the desk of the woman who actually is supposed to be doing that job of procuring talent for the NFL. So he tells me he heard my singing, and then he saw my headshot, which my headshot was, I was 15 in my headshot. And he confesses to me on the phone that he swiped it off of her desk and that he's going to handle me, and that I have beaten out Hootie and the Blowfish for the ultimate title of singing the opening show or the opening game for the season in 1995 against the Jets. And I was so blown away at the time that he said I beat out Hootie the Blowfish, because they were the big band at the time. And looking back now, I'd love to talk to Hootie. Find out if you were were you going to sing? Yeah. Is this all just a lie to just make a little girl feel really special so that she lets her guard down? Because that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. So he flirted with me on the phone and then wrote in writing. I have documentation on their letterhead with his own signature, and my mother made like 1,000 copies of it as well, saying, sorry, I didn't mean to flirt with you so much. I was just really taken back by your photo and your voice, and then continually flirting with me. And he FedExed overnight a picture of himself because he wanted me to see what he looked like. And he said, I hope you still sing, because, alluding that he wasn't good looking. Because he told me on the phone, he said, how old are you? Seeing that I was a high school student. I told him I was 17 at the time. And he was like, oh, again, you look so much older. And then I said, yeah, the headshot. I said, I'm 15. He was like, oh my God, you look so old in that headshot. So we were talking about that. And then he said, do you like older men? And I said, I didn't want to offend him because I didn't want to lose the gig.
Yeah.
So I just kind of tread lightly. I don't know. Yeah. Sure. Cool. Like, I wasn't sure what he was getting at. So then he said, I'm going to FedEx you overnight a picture of myself. So he does, which was probably $50 to make sure that got to me. So I got to work the next day, and there's a FedEx picture and a note in there. Maybe it wasn't the next day. We talked a couple of days, so the dates are, around each other. But so he sends a picture of him, and he points out who he is, and he says, hopefully you still will sing. And he called and he said, do you think I'm ugly? And I was like, no, but this is so irrelevant.
Like, does that have to do with singing?
I said, no, you seem nice. Yeah. So I was like, no, you seem nice. So he got me Skybox tickets. We went down to the game. He immediately separated me from my family, and they had their Skybox, which I thought I was going to hang out in the Skybox for at least an hour and be able to relax, because we got there like 3 or 4 hours early. And he immediately swiped me away from my family and was just hanging out with me. And we were down on the field. And I remember people kept saying, why is Ray on the field? Why is he down here? And I had no idea at this point that he wasn't the point of contact that I should be working with. Like at the Marlins, I had a point of contact. It was a woman. And I got, a copy of the singing, a thank you card, and her signature and all that in there. So the show goes off without a hitch, the game, and I sing it. And after the game, I leave. And then he starts calling my private phone at home, Ray. And Ray invites me to go to meet him for dinner in Fort Lauderdale, and says he wants to talk about opportunities within the NFL for me to sing and perform more. So I am so excited. I think that sounds amazing. So I tell my parents, they're like, yeah, go meet with him. 17. I know that sounds really scary for a parent to be like, yeah, go for that. But I had been performing and doing stuff since I was a child. So it was very much, this is Molly's job. This is Molly's work. She knows what she's doing.
Well, I think too, tell me if you disagree, that parents also look at it and they go, well, this is someone, I mean, he's not famous, but he's wealthy. He's got stature in the community.
He's not in jail, so he's obviously...
Yeah, he's a professional businessman. You know who he is. He's not a stranger that if something happened, you wouldn't know, who he is, how to get a hold of him.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you think that someone of his stature wouldn't put themselves in a position to destroy their reputation.
And yet they do.
Yeah.
And I have tons of evidence. And they're really dumb and they're really lazy. And I think they hope that we'll die off or not remember, or that the evidence falls away at this point. But I have a binder that thick of articles of me being in the paper and all of the celebrities that sent me private love letters as a child to contact them privately. So I'm glad I have all that evidence now, and my mom saved it all, because I was so fed up and furious with the industry. I wanted to burn all of my modeling books. They just want to have sex with me. And they've destroyed my dream. They've destroyed any passion for my dream, because now I have to just look for monsters instead of opportunities. So Ray invites me to dinner. My parents say that I can go, and I agree to go. And I'm thinking I'm going to drive my junker car that I paid for, half of it myself, an old Honda Prelude. And my dad says, no, I want you to take my Porsche. I don't want him to think that he has any clout over you, or that you don't have people at home looking for you. And that was the first time I even thought about, okay, right, Daddy, this could be a bad guy. This could be a bad guy, because I have made so many excuses for monsters. I used to make excuses for the monster that stalked me and finally raped me when I was 9, that I would just make excuses. These people are damaged and they need love, and that they're not capable of the things that they're capable of. So I take my daddy's Porsche. I drive about 2 hours from Jupiter down to Fort Lauderdale, and I'm very excited. I had a turtleneck sweater on. I had long pants on. And if you look at childhood photos of me after I was raped while I was being abused as well, I would wear button-up shirts to here, button the sleeves, long pants in 100-degree weather. And I would wear socks over my pants. I would wear so many layers of clothes that it was to the point my mom was like, Molly, why don't you take some of your clothes off? Yeah. No, I want more clothes on. Yeah. So I get down to see Ray. I show up at his house. He gives me directions to his actual home. I show up at his home, and his bodyguard and a black SUV are in the driveway waiting for us. And I get out of the car, park my dad's Porsche in his driveway. And the bodyguard comes and says, he just meets me and he says, Ray's inside. He'll be out in just a minute. Then Ray comes out and says, all right, let's go. And I was like, oh, I thought we were going to come in and maybe get a drink of water, say hi. It was just weird. So immediately sweeps me up, and we get in the car and we head over to the Panthers game, which I wasn't sure if we were going to that or not. I thought we were just going to go to dinner and talk about opportunities. So we get to the Panthers game. The bodyguard drives us to the Panthers game. Ray is in the back seat flirting with me pretty aggressively. And then we get to the game. They let us out. Then he holds my hand like we're on a date. And we go into the building, and as we're walking into the building, there was a scalper there saying, do you need tickets? Do you need tickets? And he goes, I own them. And I was like, oh gosh, he's one of these people. And then I said, I'm with him. We've got tickets. So we go in inside. The game has already begun. And we go sit in the ice box behind the goalie. And he offers to get me a beer. And I told him that I wasn't old enough to drink and that I have school the next day. I get up at 5:30 in the morning for school. And it was a weekday. It was a weeknight. Wow. So I wasn't supposed to be out that late to begin with. My parents really wanted me to be home, even though there was a 2-hour drive. They said, by midnight, we need to be expecting you. So be able to leave by around 10. Otherwise we're going to get worried. And this is, there's no cell phones at the time either.
Right. Yeah.
So my dad had a car phone. He was one of those people that had a car phone, thankfully, but I didn't have it on me. Yeah. So we leave the football or the oh my God, so many sports. We leave the hockey game and we go over to this restaurant called the bodyguard again waits outside, picks us up. We head over to this restaurant called the Elbow Room in Fort Lauderdale, which was one of his favorite places to hang out. He told me, Ray. So we're in the back area in this booth area hidden. And the booth is in a corner against a wall, and I'm in the corner, and the men are on either side of me. The bodyguard is on one side of me and Ray is on the other. So, and even then it didn't spark as a red flag or to be afraid or anything. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. The place was full of people. Yeah. So I knew if anything was going to get crazy, I would just scream if I needed to.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there in the corner. I thought we were going to order food, and then no food was being ordered. And I was really hungry because I thought we were going to dinner. Mm-hmm. And then he was trying to order me drinks. And I reminded him again, I'm not drinking and driving. I'm underage and I have my father's Porsche. So I'm not going to drink and drive 2 hours home. Yeah. So that's when Ray starts making out with me. He just grabs me and starts kissing me. And his hands are all over me and he's grabbing my breasts. And then he starts to try to go under my shirt and I push him off of me. I said, Ray, stop. Come on. I thought we were going to talk about opportunities. And then I think for a moment, he starts talking about, NFL this or that. Let's order some drinks. Let's get some food. And then again, Ray, I'm not going to be drinking. I'm not drinking. And then he grabs my head and pushes me into his lap, straight down into his lap. And as someone who grew up around with a lot of boys that roughed housed and played rough and did stuff like that jokingly, and just going to high school with guy friends that would do shit like that, you don't react in this, hey, what the hell are you doing? It's, hey, stop, you're being an idiot. Like, come on, I'm more than just this. I'm more than just sex. So
I try to disarm them and calm the situation down by making a joke and trying to make light of it, right? Because you don't want to be that girl that's so
right. I didn't want to attack and assume anything and be wrong. Yeah. And then also I learned by, when I was raped at 9, if you fight back, they fight harder. And when I fought back at 9, the man choked me out repeatedly because he was military trained and knew how to make people pass out really quickly. So I learned at that time to kind of laugh and fawn. My trauma therapist says that there's a new category of survivors where it's called fawning, where it's where they kind of try to appease the person, see them as a human, try to be seen as a human also, so that they will de-escalate and not do what they're doing to try. It's, a variation of freezing and playing possum, but also fawning and being very kind and sweet as to stop. So he grabs my head again, pushes it down in his lap again, and I come up again. Ray, stop. I'm going to leave if you can't stop this. And that's when he tells his bodyguard to drive me back to my car, that I'm obviously not going to have any drinks. And then I leave. So I left. The bodyguard took me in the car. It was just the two of us. Ray stayed and partied and drank or did whatever. Mm-hmm. And thankfully it was just me and the bodyguard. So the bodyguard drives me back to Ray's house where my father's car is waiting. And I was just so relieved that I was actually getting back to the car because the way it was escalating, I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah.
So we get back to the car and I drive home and I'm blasting the music and just trying to blow the guy off because it's just another predator, another false promise, another opportunity to sexually abuse Molly and see her as a hooker or a prostitute or a sex, whatever, which that is not what I was here for. I was here for singing, not even modeling at this point. I was a singer. The modeling thing was just people kept asking me to model. So I was like, oh, sure, whatever. So then I get home. I didn't tell my parents or anything about the encounter because it was embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be like, oh, did you focus on singing? No, Mom, you grabbed my boobs. Yeah. They can't focus on my singing. They can't focus on my talents. They focus on my body. And it's so upsetting. So I didn't tell my parents really anything about that. I just said, I don't think he has a lot of opportunities for me. And I don't think they're things that I want to do. It's just kind of what I wrapped it up with. The same way I blew off Ghislaine and Ghislaine, however you'd say it, or gasoline as my mother calls her. Yeah. I just really didn't get into it because it's humiliating. And I didn't want my parents to also be like, listen, you're not going to do singing and modeling and acting anymore because that's all I wanted to do was sing and act. So the next day or a day or so later, Ray calls me again on my private line in my bedroom. And he calls me and I'm shocked to hear from him. I figured at this point I was not, he could see I was not going to play and that he was just going to give up. So he calls my private line and he invites me on his yacht to a friend's private island in the Caribbean. And those words sounded like a much needed vacation to a young child about to graduate or going into my senior year, honor student. I was pre-law at this point with my focal point of going to law school. My father said, people should pay you to debate with you. And you do it with me for free. So my father was willing to pay for law school. He's like, you should be charging to debate people. And so he was willing to pay for me to go to law school at the time. And I gave up on all of that. I severe PTSD came through in college. I had nervous breakdown. I got very, very sick, chronic fatigue, and ended up being sick for almost a year in school, recovering. And not putting all of this together, that PTSD and these kind of events lead to chronic conditions, chronic exposure and weakening. I had Epstein-Barr, speaking of Epstein, Epstein-Barr, which is another silent zapper of all your energy from trauma. It stems from just low energy. So Ray invites me to the Caribbean. I am blown away that I get to go on a yacht. I mean, again, my grandfather had a yacht. My grandfather had a yacht in Hollywood. My family was from a very wealthy background. So a yacht party sounded like a lot of fun to me. Sounded like a yacht party I went to, whenever. And my parents we had our own boat too. It was a nice little boat. And my dad was part of a club that he was friends with that said they were a yachting boat club. So when Ray invited me on his yacht, it was like fun. And then so I told my parents. My mother is immediately so excited. She's like, oh gosh, you deserve this break. Have a good time, honey. We'll see you Sunday when you come back. She starts packing my bag. She's grabbing my Oscar de la Renta swimsuits that I used to model at pageants. She's throwing them in a bag. And then she looks at me, or someone asked me, what will you guys be doing? And that's an excellent question. Like, what are we going to be doing for 3 days on your yacht in this private island in the Caribbean that your friend owns? And so, I think we'd approached my father at this point as well too, because everyone was home. My brothers and everyone was home at this point. And the idea to ask some more questions came up. So I call Ray back on my phone and I say, hey, Ray, I was just talking to my parents about the offer of going out of town with you, out of the country with you. And I said, they want to know what we'll be doing. And he said, we'll be scuba diving, massages, relaxing, just enjoying and getting some sun and having some fun. And I was like, massages, all right, that sounds really lovely. Like I could use a massage. That sounds fantastic. So I tell my mom all of that. She's like, that's great. Oh, and before I get off the phone with Ray, I tell him, I was like, oh, I'm not certified to scuba. My father was, so I knew you needed to be certified. So then he goes, well, we'll just snorkel then. Massages, snorkels, just rest and relaxation, have a good time. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds great. So then I tell my father, and my father being from Hollywood and seeing all the bullshit, my mother's, Indiana and Michigan raised, so she was not aware of these people. My dad zeroes in on him and says, tell Ray that if we can go, you can go. So I call back Ray and I said, listen, my parents are not going to let me go unless they can go. And Ray goes, let me talk to your dad. I'll talk to him. And I was like, I said, no, my father would get actually really mad if you get on and talk to him because he'll see that you're trying to strong arm him and push him. And I said, my dad will decimate you. And I said, let me handle my dad. I'll talk to my dad. So I get off the phone with Ray and I go and talk to my dad. And my dad looks at me and he says, Molly, I want you to understand something. I am not about to let a grown man, billionaire, take my underage daughter into international waters. I need you to understand that we don't have the kind of money to ever come up against these people if you went missing. And willingly so, he said, we would have not a leg to stand on to search for you. And we don't even know where we'd look. And it suddenly just, I failed to mention also, I was abducted by a neighbor in Pebble Beach and almost sold at the Monterey Bay Aquarium when I was a child. We were waiting for a friend. She told me to call her mom. And when I disassociated and started panicking, someone noticed and asked, are you okay? And I said, I don't think so. And they called the police and the police were waiting for me at my house. And the whole thing was just a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. So when my father told me that this person could never bring me back, it brought me back to that woman. It brought me back to understanding that there are monsters that will kidnap you and then tell your family that you went willingly, because I would have. So my father hugged me and said, we'll go out on our boat. We'll have a nice family time. And we went on our boat and we had a good time. And I never thought I'd hear from Ray again. And sometime later, Ray called again and invited me to sing for the end of the year, the NFL banquet with Terry Bradshaw and the hosts there. And they wanted me to sing and start the thing off, sing the national anthem again. And he couldn't wait to see me again. And he gave me an extra ticket and he said, bring a friend, bring a date, bring a friend, whatever. I didn't have many friends at the time because the stories you're listening to, most people don't believe. One of the reasons I went through with a lot of things was to prove a lot of kids that didn't believe me or peers that were gaslighting me so that I would be seen in the paper as, look, she actually did the things she said she was going to, that I wasn't just a talker, that I was a doer and an accomplisher. So he invites me back, gives me that extra ticket. I couldn't think of an actual friend to bring that would understand or appreciate whatever all this was. I wasn't about to bring a boy because I didn't care. The first thought that came to my head was I was going to invite my daddy. My daddy loved football. You know, he would get down on the field and press pass and take whatever pictures and whatever he wanted to do. And he was floored that I invited him. He was so moved that I invited him. He said, are you sure you don't want to take someone else? I said, Daddy, I want you to come. I want you to be my date. And I have the cutest picture of my dad in a tuxedo and me in a black gown, ready for the evening. And I went with my dad and I took my dad and I never heard from Ray again after that.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. These men, you know, and it's so the typical pattern. They isolate you. They offer you alcohol to loosen you up. And yeah.
There's an MO here.
Been there, done that.
And that's all I'm trying to come out and show is that there is an MO here. There's a game here. There is a style of fishing, and that there are these checkpoints apparently at auditions, at pageants, at football games, under the guise of human trafficking, prostitution, models. I was invited to and hung out at a recruiting party that I didn't even realize I was at a recruiting party. And it was so interesting because they kept saying they're interviewing models, they're looking for models. And I was telling my girlfriend, I'm a model. And she kept saying, not that kind of model. Oh. I was like, what does not that kind of model even mean? What kind of models are there? And I wasn't pressing. At this point, I was like 19 or 20 years old. So I wasn't even a child at the time. I was home from the holidays and met this girl, Lisa, who ran circles with Paris Hilton and the socialite communities. And her father was in politics or something. And she was absolutely paranoid. And she would lay in bed and look through Forbes magazines looking for billionaires to marry. And she would help me. She would say, Molly, will you look at them? Because I told her I was really good at reading people's intentions. And she would tell me to look at their pictures and see, did they look like they were going to be evil? And I thought that was just such a weird thing. So she invites me to this party. I go to this party. We meet up with this one guy. His name is Bobby, who she tells me is a pimp and a recruiter. And that he's a model recruiter. And then, because that's what I told her, I said, oh, good, talk to Bobby for me. And she told me again, Molly, he's like a pimp. And I was like, I don't understand the connection or correlation of this model pimp world. And so we go out with Bobby, and she tells Bobby, don't prey on Molly. She's a friend, and just don't go there with her. So Bobby and Lisa and I go to this party on Palm Beach Island where there are just a ton of adults and a ton of young looking girls there. And Lisa tells me, and I'm hearing the buzz of the room, that they're looking for models. They're recruiting, and they're interviewing models right then and there at night at this party. And I'm telling Lisa, that's amazing. It's like a gold mine of opportunity. She goes, no, don't talk to anyone. Don't go into any private rooms. She said, Molly, they are not recruiting your type of model. And I didn't know what that meant. What other type of modeling is there? So we leave that party and we go on a yacht to this guy, Kurt, who at the time was associated with the inheritance for Campbell Soup. His name was Kurt. You can still find him. We get on his yacht. We get on his boat where he's living. And it was Lisa, Bobby, and me, and Kurt. We get on the boat. And the first thing Kurt says to me is, she cool? To which Lisa goes, no. And I look at Lisa and I go, I'm cool. And she goes, that's not what he's asking. And I go, what's he asking? She goes, he wants to know if you'll have sex with him. And And I looked at him, I go, no, I'm not a hooker. I'm not a prostitute. And he goes, that's not what I was asking at. He goes, I wanted to know if she would do coke. And then Lisa goes, no, we're not doing any coke. So, and then she tells me, she goes, Molly, let's get out of here. There's only 4 of us and this party is starting. And I, at this point, was still like, oh no, it's fine. Let's just hang out. He's air guitaring and, you know, this guy is just being a weirdo and telling me all these scandalous stories and connections that he has. So Lisa, Bobby, and I leave the yacht. We go back to the party. And as soon as I get back to the party, I hear that Trump has invited all of us, every single one of us, to move the party to Mar-a-Lago. And I'm like, oh my God, I just got invited to a Trump party. So I tell Lisa, I'm like, oh my God, are we going? Let's go. I'm thinking he's going to have a spread of great food. There's going to be great music. Like, I came from a background that wasn't full of pedophile elites. Yeah. I came from a background of an actual family that had money, and we went to nice parties and no one was raping anyone there.
Yeah.
At least not that we were aware of. So I tell Lisa, it's like only 10 o'clock at night. I go, Lisa, let's go. She goes, Molly, we're not going. We're going home to her house. She's like, we'll just go get ice cream. We'll go back to my house. We'll have a fun night. Like, she didn't want to disappoint me and felt sad that I was really excited because she goes, Molly, they are not looking for models. They are looking for prostitutes. Yeah. And I was thinking, okay, well, a whole party of 100 people are going to go to Trump's house. Was he going to have sex with everyone? I think he has enough options. So I look at her and I go, well, I'm not a prostitute. Like, it's irrelevant. I'm not going to have sex with him. So let's just go to the party as models. Yeah. And she goes, Molly, they are a rough crowd. They are not safe, and it gets rough really quick. And that's when I said, I don't want to know anymore. I got a sick feeling. And the party was dispersing and heading over to Mar-a-Lago, and she and I left, and we got ice cream. We went to the grocery store and we got pints of ice cream, and we sat in her gigantic bed in her wing of her mansion because her father was in politics or something. And we ate ice cream in bed, and she asked me to flip through Forbes magazines for a billionaire for her. And that was one of the last times I saw her. She was incredibly paranoid. She thought she was constantly being watched and bugged. She would constantly tell me, thank you for calming her down, for helping her feel safer. And I am looking back, I am so grateful that she was so protective of me and forthcoming and not recruiting me. She could have so easily just led me to a lamb to slaughter. That's what my mom said. She said, Molly, you were just a lamb to slaughter repeatedly.
Yeah. Yeah. And people don't realize if you don't live in certain areas and you don't hang out with certain people, or, you know, you have no clue how easily these things happen, how prevalent it is. I mean, I remember myself going in to meet with, talent scouts or aid people who are supposedly agents, and it's, they reach over and push a button on their desk and the door closes and locks behind you and you're in the room alone with them,
It's terrifying.
Well, we have parties with a lot of producers and, would you be willing to be friendly, is how they would pose it. It's like, What does that mean?
Say the real words, please. Yeah. Say the real words.
Yeah.
It's all of this reading between the lines bullshit that they know that they're doing. They want you to read between the lines and have just enough bait to get you to come.
Yeah, but they want plausible deniability of, well, I didn't
willingly came. Right.
I didn't ask her to sleep with anybody. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's so common. It's so gross. It's what turned me off to the industry too.
I can imagine.
Oh, God. Yeah, it makes my skin crawl. I mean, I had a guy who, because I was a dancer when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I would dance at started dancing at the Palace in LA. And
I remember the Palace. My parents lived in LA. They lived they met in Hollywood.
Yeah. So
weird.
I was dancing there for a while for Power 106 Radio, right when the first Batman movie was coming out, doing like a little show for them. And I was referred to someone else who said, oh, this guy can help you in the industry, to get in and become a professional dancer. And call this guy, leave him a message. He calls me back, and he's literally, I mean, he didn't say he was, but you could tell he's masturbating on the phone with me and asking me questions and what are you wearing? And, you know, I want you to touch yourself. I mean, like immediately, like not, didn't get to know me, kind of work his way into it. It was just like, you want something from me. And so I'm going to try to get something from you right up front.
Gatekeepers are dangerous.
Yeah. I'm not even going to play nice for 5 minutes. I mean,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It just sickens me.
Yeah.
You know, I gave up on all my dreams. I gave up on the singing. I put it on the shelf for 20 years. I learned production and videography and ran a business for as long as I could. We had a technology failure and a hard drive crash, and we lost a ton of work that just ruined our company. We sent it off to 2 labs for data recovery. It was at the peak of moving from tapes to digital. Yeah. And it was just this experimental phase of all this new technology coming out that a lot of it just failed. And I had a nervous breakdown at that point of, I don't know what to do with my life, God. I don't know what to do. You cut this one off and you cut this one off, and all I want to do is sing. And now I feel like I'm being pushed onto this new path, a path of, you know, over the summer, I got to produce an amazing fundraiser for the Actors Fund that I got a playbill out of, and I got to get to work with 30 celebrities that just jumped on and made this thing an amazing collaboration of raising money for furloughed theater workers. And we made it an amazing 2-hour show with brand new music and dancing and singing of essential workers through the plague. So I had a nice project to work on over the summer, and it got me back into visualizing musical theater once again.
It sucks, you know, because you were so talented, you're beautiful, and yeah, it's just, God.
I started getting I put on a lot of weight after college. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to just be ugly. I used to have men follow me when I was driving. They would pull up next to me and they're like, "You are so hot." And I'd say, "Oh, thanks," or just okay, or just ignore. And then they'd follow me.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where I had
to be rude.
Yeah. And that's when it escalates even quicker if you're rude.
You give them any little small glimmer of hope, and you're in danger a lot.
And then if you're mean, they turn on you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. I remember one time so when I was working at that recording studio, I was able to record 2 songs that went pretty popular over in Europe. They were, we call them Euro trash pop hits. And I recorded both of them at the recording studio that I was working at. And my brother and my girlfriend and I, the one who sang also, that I met through that coach, she and I became best friends, and we were performing all the time, and it was safe. We would find legitimate, beautiful things to collaborate together on. So we were down in Miami one time. We were at this club in Miami, this huge club, and all of a sudden one of my songs came on. And I recognized it, and this guy came over to try to talk to me, and I wouldn't talk to him. I was with my older brother at the time too. He was there, and the guy went under my dress, through my underwear, slipped under my underwear, and rammed his fingers inside of me while I was just walking away from him. And I froze, and I looked at my brother, and he said, "What is the matter?" And I said, "Someone just put their fingers in me." And my brother saw someone bolting and running out of the club, and my brother ran after him. And I had a dress on that had built-in snappy crotch underwear over my underwear.
Oh my God.
And he went in right from the side and just attacked me. And my brother chased him out to the parking lot. The guy just kept running. And then my brother turned around. He's like, let's get out of here. He's like, "Molly, what happened?" I was just crying. That happened to a sorority sister of mine when we were in New Orleans. Exact same thing happened. And I was able to console her, telling her I experienced being digitally raped by someone just walking by you.
Yeah. Yeah. This world.
Oh my God.
We need such stronger laws. I mean, in this country, when you have people who will go to jail for 10 years for tax evasion, but yet they'll get 6 months, 1 year for pedophilia.
Right. Or any kind of sexual violence.
Yeah. Our laws are so ass backwards. Our priorities are so screwed up and upside down.
Well, I can only imagine and speculate that whoever's writing the laws are the bad guys that are one step ahead of us, making sure that the laws work for them. And we are one step below.
Up until very recently, I mean, look at our Congress. I mean, it was majority was men.
I know.
You don't think of sexual assault in the same way. For them, I mean, that's all they're looking for. What comedian was it that said you spend 9 months trying to get out of the womb and the rest of your life trying to get back in? I mean, so they don't.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, they don't think of it in the same way. They think of it as, oh, well, everybody has sex, and so what's the big deal? They don't comprehend.
That's what I was telling my husband last night about how they will discredit, because I was reading some of the testimony of some of these girls about how they will attack and make them look like whores. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I don't know how they can't flip it back to be like, well, this man was having sex and I suddenly rammed my fist up his ass and he didn't like it anymore, but he liked all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So my husband's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and not all men. I don't mean to paint all men as creeps and bastards and pedophiles and, they're not all that way. But there are so many men and so many lawmakers who just don't, they don't get it, unless they've had a child who has been sexually assaulted, as I do. And gone through the hell and the fallout from that and the suicide, ideologies. And
me too. I've had 2 serious attempts where I attempted to take my life.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything.
I hate my memories. I am agoraphobic. I have complex PTSD. I work from home. I've worked for myself for 16 years. 2 job interviews I went to, when I was finishing up college. One of the first job interviews I went on was for a producer. An executive producer was looking for an executive assistant. And as someone who was actually a real executive assistant that wasn't sexually related, I was qualified because at 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever year I started the recording studio, I was managing their office as a teenager. Wow. So I had incredible experience. I was managing the offices in middle school because I couldn't do PE. So I learned this office management skill at a very, very young age and was able to get incredible jobs, like real jobs, pretty easily. So I was wrapping up college and I found this ad in the newspaper in Orlando that this man, a record producer, was looking for an executive assistant. And I think it was paying $30 an hour, which I thought was a fantastic rate considering I was making about $25 at another software company, startup. It was a much longer drive and this was very closer. So I was looking for a different job where I could be an executive assistant. So I called about the job and the guy told me to come after hours. He said to come at 5:15, 5:30. He said he wanted to have an interview with no distractions. I put on my cute little BB suit. I had 3 little BB suits that I would go for job interviews, modeling things, and even perform in them because they looked very classy and beautiful and sophisticated, and they weren't overly sexual or anything. Yeah. So I had my bag from college. I had, my duffel bag, my case or whatever, my legal bag, which I used as a purse, my interviewing stuff in it. Showed up. I remember showing up to the building and I got to the building. The elevator wasn't working. So I had to climb the stairs. And as someone who's handicapped, that wasn't fun for me, but I was seeing all these people leaving the building, coming down the stairwell and leaving. And I was like, shoot, everyone's leaving the building and I'm meeting this guy that I've never seen or met or know anything about. So I knock on the door and the guy is there and I go in and meet him and he's like a 400-pound bald African-American man. And I give him my resume and he calls, come in, sit down. I sit down with him. I'm across from him and he starts interviewing me on my skills. And then he starts asking some really weird questions. He starts asking me about, will I go out of town with him if he needs to go out of town? I said, sure, as your assistant, why not? And then he said, what if we need to share a room together? And I was thinking, do you not have money to pay me? You can't pay for a separate room? How do you have $30 an hour to pay my salary and have this office and be an executive producer and we can't have separate rooms? I said, no, not likely. I will book us separate rooms though. And then he goes, what if I had a really stressful day and I need a massage? Would you give me a massage? And I said, sure. You know how dumb I am? I took a massage course at FSU because I thought one day my husband would want a massage. And my brother kept telling me, I want to marry a masseuse. I want to marry like a real masseuse.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, that's a good skill to have. It was an elective, a credit. It was 3 hours once a week where I would learn the anatomy, the reasons for massage. I'd get a massage for an hour and give one for an hour and learn actual technique.
Mm-hmm.
So what's so dumb is all these people asking for massages. I was like, yeah, I know massage. Like I know real massage.
Boy, this is like a theme, you know?
But what is the theme? So he goes, would you give me a massage if I've had a long day? And I said, sure. I said, I actually took a massage course. I could give you a massage if you've had a rough day. And he goes, can you show me your massage skills right now? So naive. I get up and I start giving massage. And then he grabbed my hand and I pulled it away really quickly and made a really wide berth around him and sat back down and started to get my things. And I said, you know what? I have to be somewhere at 5:30. I have another interview. I said, can we make, because he was saying about coming back and meeting another partner
mm-hmm.
and conducting further the interview at that point. And when I was doing when I felt that I was alone,
mm-hmm.
the massage thing, and then him touching my hand as I was coming away, I got very scared, very nervous. Right. And that's when he said, I want to hire you. Will you come back for a second interview? And I was so relieved that he was going to let me leave and fabricate the second interview that I was agreeing to. I said, absolutely. Yes, I'll come back for a second interview tomorrow and meet your partner. Mm-hmm. And I left and I called him from my car and I told him, I know what you're up to. And I recorded our entire conversation, which I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, but I wanted to threaten him. I said, I've gone to the police and I've sent our entire interview to the police. Don't you ever do this to another person.
Wow.
And he called me back immediately and I was so scared. I just let it go to voicemail. And I called my dad crying from the Publix parking lot. And he was like, Molly, we'll find you legitimate work.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for an executive assistant.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I've had bosses, you know, touch me inappropriately, married bosses too, yes. By the way. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But look what you're doing now. You know what? We've been forced into doing something that is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's why I started doing these segments on Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein, because it's so horrific. It's so, I mean,
and intertwined. It's in everything.
Unbelievable what they got away with for
unbelievable
decades upon decades. And
I have a girlfriend that's aware of them from the late 80s.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I just did a segment on all of the new victims that have come forward. And yeah, there were some from the 70s. I mean, it's unreal. Absolutely unreal how long they got away with it. And it's just because so many people look the other way. So many people allow it. And
not because I think they're meaning to, honestly. They are just, it's so, to someone who saw it so much, it was so mind-blowing to even me. I couldn't even process it. It's taken me 33 years to process sexual predators. And to even come to this conclusion, I didn't even tell my mother about my childhood monster till I was 20 or 21, because I still was processing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, in a way, when you're sexually assaulted, I mean, I know I've felt this way. You feel partially responsible. You know, at least I know I did. I mean, my first assault was when I was 11. It was my brother's friend, and yeah, you feel like I must have done something. I must have said something. I must have worn something. I must have.
Right. I deserve this. I must have done something.
I must have done something to bring this on myself. And so I should feel ashamed. I should feel guilty, you know, and unfortunately I had a family that just played into that. And I, you know, when I finally did come out with it, yeah, my grandmother, who was, you know, grew up as this very, in like a patriarchal type of family that believed.
Yeah, my family doesn't like me coming out because I've come out against my uncle too. He propositioned me on my grandfather's yacht when I was 4 or 5. We were in the parlor in my grandfather's yacht. I was playing with his son. We were the same age, probably 4 or 5. And my uncle walked into the room and said, hey, offer Molly $5, see if she'll take her dress off. And I was terrified at that moment. I looked at my cousin like, what's your move? And then my dad walked in and I ran up and hid behind his legs. And I didn't even know how to process that. How do you accuse your uncle? And that night I fell asleep face first in my food. So I have no idea if he had drugged me and assaulted me, but his sister came out that he had abused her sexually his entire life.
Oh my God.
And she was suicidal, and they would gaslight her repeatedly that she's such a mess and don't believe her. She's just a this. She ended up marrying a pedophile because she was so messed up. She didn't know how to find anything but.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first time,
so common too, you know, we get abused, we get assaulted, and then we somewhat do it to ourselves because we feel that that's all that we are deserving of.
Right. And when we're told by some monsters too that this is what you're for, it really makes you think.
And even if
I was raised Catholic at the same time,
I mean, in a way, subliminally, that's kind of what we're told our whole lives.
Yeah, our purpose.
That's what we're for. I mean, when that's the only thing that, you know, we're asked for, and that these men show interest in us for, you grow up thinking that's what I am. That's what I'm here for. That's
what he was showing me. The man that was stalking me and finally raped me when I was 9. He raped me to a video of a child servicing her husband from Vietnam because he was a Vietnam War veteran. And he wanted me to marry him and be his child bride. And he was trying to break me and condition and groom me. He told me I was his gift from God and that I was his gift for the service that he did for this world. And it was so hard to understand this at the age of 6, 7, 8, and 9. And he would stalk me and be in my window and no one would see him. We lived in the forest in Pebble Beach and we lived on a 1/4 acre lot and he was 3 houses down and we had a forest in our backyard. So he would stand on, we had a hot tub outside of our window and a big porch patio that he could just stand on and look right in my window. And I remember I would see him and he would scare me. And I would go out to the living room and I would tell my parents, there's someone in my window. And they would never see him. He would hide immediately and no one would see him. And our dog knew him, so he wouldn't even out him. He had a Doberman. So I remember my parents kept telling me, Molly, there's no one there, honey. And then they started telling me to sleep the other way, to face the other direction. One night I got up and I yelled in the window and I said, boo! And I closed the curtains really quick, trying to scare it.
Oh. Wow.
A woman who abducted me and tried to sell me at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, both of her boys tried to rape me when I was 6 or 7. I came over to play one time. That's why I was not allowed over there anymore. Talk about playing rough. I don't know if you were actually penetrated by the friend. No, thank God you weren't. Yeah. But that was what their intention was. I was over there playing. I was with my big brother again. We were over there playing. And my mom said, you know, they're rowdy. They had burnt portions of their house down twice while we lived there. They were crazy children and allowed to do whatever they wanted. The mother was horribly abused. And I think the father probably raped her in front of the boys. That's how they knew this behavior. So I was over there one time. We kind of just moved to the area at this point of Pebble Beach. And we were inside their house. And I've had this conversation with my mom so many times because I've told her, because she asked, how do we protect the kids? How do we protect the little girls that are related to me, that are, you know, my relatives? How do we protect them? And I tell my mom, I said, you know what, Mom, we need to be really, really forthcoming with some really scary details so that we have a reference point. I said, because you used to tell me it wasn't ladylike to be in someone's house. And I just couldn't understand what that meant. I thought, was it ladylike that I should change my clothes? That was it not ladylike I should offer them a drink? I should be nicer. I should clean their house. So I never knew how to act when I'd go into someone's house because I have to be ladylike. What does that mean? Yeah. My mom thought that was a good enough warning of it's not safe. You're fragile. That was her way of saying, you know, you're fragile. Just don't go over there. It just didn't register. Yeah. So I was over there. We were invited down to the basement level where these kids had literally every toy under the sun. They were so wealthy. And I mean, for our middle class wealthy level. Yeah. And they had literally every toy under the sun there. I had a dress on with tights on because it was Pebble Beach. It was always cold. And I got down to the basement. And as soon as I walked in the door, I started looking at the toys. These 2 boys ambushed me from behind, grabbed me, threw me down on a bed, pinned me down, and started ripping my tights off and spreading my legs open and telling my brother to help them.
Oh, my God.
And saying, get her legs apart, get her legs apart. And Will was horrified. My brother was horrified. I shouldn't have said his name. My brother was horrified. He grabbed them and got them off of me and told me, Molly, run home. And this was across the street. So I ran out of the house and I ran home and I told my mom, and she just didn't understand the gravity of it. It was just, Molly, boys play too rough. And some of them are just evil boys. Stay away from them. The end. And then the mother tried to abduct me or she did abduct me and tried to sell me at the aquarium or pass me off to someone at the aquarium. Either way, we were meeting someone there that I had no idea who we were meeting. So, I mean, there's so many. And at the time I made excuses for all of these people and just continued on with my life. And then looking back now, I'm horrified.
Yeah. 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 People have no idea. Yeah. I just,
you have so much content here. I swear you could do like a 6-part.
Yeah, I just want parents to hear all of this and understand it's very real. It goes on all the time. You have to be so vigilant. And I mean, I thought I was, from what I went through as a kid, I thought I was, and I still, like I was saying to you, you think certain people are safe, right? You think certain people, oh, well, that type of person or this person in this industry, I mean, the person who assaulted our daughter was a teacher's aide. I mean, you would think you can trust someone in education, right? No. So
and that's what I'm telling people. You've got to start knowing that your children could be sexually abused when they're infants, when they're mute. By the time that you're teaching them, they could have already been assaulted.
Yeah.
And that was my case as well. I felt like I had some sort of abuse. I went mute when I went through my surgeries. The doctor was also found to have so many lawsuits against him, he committed suicide. Oh. So I don't know if he was inappropriate with me as an innocent child on his operating table, operating on my hip, which is right next to my private parts. Yeah. I went mute at that time. I didn't talk for months. I broke out into hives and wanted to leave the hospital immediately. And I told my mom, at that point, when you finally started telling me about sexual predators, I mean, when I was 9 and going to Catholic school, I didn't even know what sex was, and I was raped. So when my mother was finally telling me these things, I already had secrets and excuses that I was making for people. So I wasn't sure what to tell her, or if any of it was what she was speculating.
Yeah.
And I was too scared to speak up. I was too scared to speak up because I didn't want to find out who else was involved. The man who sexually abused me, the man who raped me, when I would wake up from him knocking me out repeatedly during the encounter, he would say things, well, he was sexually torturing me. He would repeatedly force me to orgasm to the point of blacking out. And he told me he was sexually pleasing me. He was down on me. And he asked me if my father does this to me, and he said, I don't know how your father could keep his hands off of you. And then he said, do your brothers do this to you? And I just disassociated and left my body at that point. And I was so terrified that my whole family might do stuff like that to me. I just didn't bring it up. I didn't want to find out. About a year later, my sweet dad noticed when we moved to Florida, because we moved away from this whole area about a week later, across country to Florida. And he wanted to go on a father-daughter date with me because I was starting to disassociate and show signs of not transitioning well to the new schools. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mom saying, Daddy wants to spend some time with you. He wants to spend some time alone with you. And I was terrified that he was going to have sex with me on our date. I remember I had panic attacks for 2 weeks leading up to the date. My mom wanted me to wear a skirt that night and a cute little top. And I wanted to wear pants. And I wanted to wear a long sleeve button shirt. And she kept saying, honey, what is the matter? You look so beautiful. You're so sweet. This is your daddy. What is the matter? She's like, is there something I need to know about daddy? And I said, no, there's nothing for daddy. And he took me to dinner and we went to see Beetlejuice. And during dinner, I couldn't even eat. I was going to throw up. I was so scared that I'd have to put out to my father afterwards. And I was 10 at this point. And I could hardly eat, couldn't hardly eat. I was so tiny too. I could hardly eat. I was constant anxiety. And we went and saw Beetlejuice. And I remember watching Beetlejuice and I just kept disassociating. And I loved Beetlejuice. I loved the supernatural. I've had imaginary friends as a child. So I loved all of this ghost world. I've had many ghost encounters my entire life. So I felt like they were my friends. That was my world. And I remember sitting in the theater and I kept thinking that my dad was maybe going to hold my hand or rub my leg or touch me. And he was a gentleman the whole time. And I remember thinking, I can't watch this movie and worry about my dad at the same time. And I really want to see this movie. And at this point, if my dad is a predator, then my dad is a predator. And I just kind of zoned out and watched the movie. And after the movie, we went home, we had the top down and we drove home and he didn't sexually assault me.
That is so sad that you, God, that we're like surprised that, a man that proclaims to love you and care about you doesn't sexually assault you.
Yeah, I was floored. And then these people rob the ability to connect or trust anyone.
Yeah.
And my family would constantly yell at me for, Molly, you're so emotional. You're so triggered. You're so defensive. Anyone touches you and you jump and you
yeah.
What is wrong with you? And then I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it was
that connection until you get there. Yeah.
And then let's go see a therapist. Let's get to the bottom of why Molly is so angry. And it was just seeing therapist after therapist after therapist. And I told so many people too, and I kept waiting for the Calvary to arrive. And every day I'd wake up and think, well, maybe they'll come tomorrow. Maybe they're still brainstorming.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate a platform like this to be heard. That's why I started my own podcast, was just to have my own voice and teach other women how to do their own podcasting and produce themselves and not rely on anyone else to share their story.
Yeah. Yeah.
The media has misquoted a lot of what I've said. Ghislaine didn't say she was trying to recruit me as a masseuse. She said was massages. Yeah. So I'm grateful that my podcast came out before all of the articles where I tell my story. And it's so funny, all of these news articles, 20, 30 articles came out globally. Not one of them bothered to listen to my podcast, which tells the actual story that I just told you. Verbatim. And somehow they took different ways of it. And now it's like, first of all, one of them says I was a teenage mannequin. What? My husband had a field day with that. Making the funniest. I am mannequin. I cannot move. It's a teenage mannequin once sang for American soccer. And I was just like, I can't with it's like grapevine, telephone, getting your story out.
Wow.
So I'm glad I have my story that came out. I think it was August 2nd, before all of the other articles, that has a concrete telling of my story, the way I've shared it here, the exact way it happened.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to fit a narrative too.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people involved. It's the ultimate multi-level marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad that, some of these girls that were abused by him ended up turning into abusers and
right, the Stockholm syndrome.
And it's, I feel for them. I do. I mean, it's tough.
I keep that in mind. They're very damaged. And I don't know the hell that they went through. Right. I only know the hell that I went through.
You don't know if they were threatened. You don't know if they threatened their family.
You can assume.
Yeah. I mean,
you see the MO.
Come forward and said they threatened me. They threatened my family. Yeah.
The man who raped me and stalked me threatened me too. He said he would kill me and kill my family. So that's what they do. It's what they say. And it was one of the reasons I stayed mute for so long. When we moved to Florida, I thought he was going to come get me. I figured he must. I held as an incredible secret. He must be coming to get me. He must be coming, and not get me that I'm excited. Get me that he's going to murder me. Get me that he's going to kidnap me. Get me that he's going to silence me. Because at some point, I'm going to figure this out and have the balls to put the pieces together and tell someone. I was just waiting for a safe adult to feel safe around. And I started glomming on to my new teacher at the new Catholic school I was at. And she even noticed and called my parents and was like, what is with Molly? She won't leave me alone. Like, she is literally like this with me all day long. What's going on with her? And, my parents missed an opportunity there too, to really dig in there. It was just, I don't think she's adjusting well.
Yeah.
And when I found out that he died when I was in high school, because I didn't find out he died until a couple of years ago, I wanted to reach out to his son, my childhood friend, because I was looking for him, my childhood friend, and wanted to see. I've never come out against this man, Brad, that sexually abused me as a child. He was a Purple Heart recipient, war hero.
Oh, wow.
And I never came out against him. And I felt really obligated as an adult who had a child that if he has any grandchildren, I need to tell his sons so that they're safe.
Yeah.
So I found the son online and I reached out to him. First, I reached out to my neighbor that remembered when Brad opened the door with his penis hanging out. So I was so grateful that my neighbor, who was never abused by him, recalled that she was a year younger than me and that we came to the door looking for his son and that Brad came to the door naked with his penis out, which then he grabbed me and started touching my chest in front of her in his stoop. And then he rammed his hand in my pockets of my pants and said, "Are these new pants?" and immediately started rubbing me. And I was pulling away and we got out of there because Kevin wasn't home. I got away and, Kevin's not here, come back later. So we left. And so thankfully she remembered that. So I reached out to his son and I said, how's your father? And he said, he died. He's dead. So I decided not to tell him at that point. I figured there was no reason. If he's dead and he died in 96, your children have never met him, then there's nothing here. So I kind of just let it go. And then I got the balls this past year on my birthday to finally tell him that your father raped me. And he was horrified. And then I said, I believe your mother knows too. Because I know she knows. She was there during it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So,
yeah, I had a similar situation. I took in two of my daughter's friends in 2013. Their mother's a mess. And shortly after moving in with us, stuff started coming out, and we come to find out that, one of their mother's boyfriends, who happened to be an anchor on Channel 9 News for quite some time, years ago, he had sexually assaulted both of them. And they were both, I believe, 8 and 10 or 9 and 11 at that time. Forced them to do things to him, did things to him for quite some time. And they went to the police. They started to report it, but then the police were going to require that they contact him, try to
set up his trap.
Yeah, get him on recording, admitting to it. And
I would have been all over that.
They did not want to. They were early teenage years at that point, middle school.
And I was constantly looking for that to manifest. I wanted.
They didn't want to ever talk to him again. They just were so freaked out by the whole thing. So they said no. And so the whole case was dropped. And then more recently, because I've been like
resurrected.
Want to take this man down. And so I had been, looking for him over the years, waiting for them to be ready. They're both now in their 20s, waiting for them to be ready to take him on and take him down. And he recently passed away. So,
oh, how unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. One of the reasons I came out against my uncle was my other uncle passed. My father died of brain cancer from the stress of all of it. And he was the youngest of all of the children from the family too. So for him to die first was very upsetting to me after everything they put him through. And I came out against my uncle recently first because I wasn't about to let him, another one, get off the hook and die with any dignity.
Yeah.
So I told my aunt on Facebook. They posted a picture of my christening. I've never spoken to them since they stole our inheritance. And I have never spoken to them because of what my uncle did. My rest of my family, they kind of made amend-ish, were cool with it. And I stayed the black sheep would not speak to them. When they came to my father's funeral, I would not speak to them. I would not come anywhere near them. And one of the last times when I was 8, that uncle tapped me on the head and touched me. And I said, don't ever touch me, in front of my entire family. And my dad at the time was like, that's my girl. I love you so much. Like he had no idea that was there behind it. He thought I was just defending my father because of them, changing my grandfather's will on his deathbed. And so I came out against him first, and it was a huge backlash. It was really upsetting because his daughter first came out and said some really concerning things, saying that sexual abuse doesn't happen, it's not real, and it's only in bad dreams and in the movies. And I wrote her back and I said, that sounds like something your mother's told you when you've woken up from a bad dream.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they were not happy for me coming out. They said I was attacking my uncle. And I said, okay, you call it what you want. I'm not letting him go silently into that good night.
No, that's how these men perpetrate these crimes for decades upon decades, because we as women were taught, and you and I are a little different in age, but we're close to the same age. And I think our mothers did us a disservice by teaching us to be quiet and polite, and you don't be rude, and you don't, back to adults. No. And
I know that's what they were doing their best. They just wanted us to be a good wife.
Yeah, they did. But
and considering we've been property and until the 70s didn't have much rights.
Yeah.
I understand the mentality.
We need to teach girls there's a difference between being rude and having autonomy and having control of your own body and who touches you and who doesn't. And that it's not rude. It's not, you're not being ladylike if you tell someone, get your freaking hands off of me or I'm going to break your bones,
Right. Well, so for me, there was so much of a disconnect coming in because I've talked to my trauma therapist trying to understand. So I was, at the same time, I was going to a private Catholic school, the Carmel Mission, at that same time, where we are told we are only worth our virginity. We're little brides of Christ. I married Jesus in 2nd grade in my little wedding dress and ate his body and drank his blood and did the ritual of communion, not knowing what the hell even that was. What are we doing here? I had all the questions for the nuns and they didn't like the questions.
Made me go through the first communion too. I was like, I don't even know.
What are we doing here? I don't want to marry anybody. It was really scary. And then also Jesus was my imaginary friend as a kid. So when I'd see him on the cross, I'd be like, who are you? What is happening? You are freaking me out.
Yeah.
So things got really scary and confusing. But at that same time, the point I was making, we are told to be polite. We're told to respect adults.
Mm-hmm.
We're told, okay, so the person across the street from me is a predator and the person down the street from me is a predator. And I am told that rapists are strangers. It was called stranger danger at the time.
Yeah.
So it was I was expecting someone in a trench coat.
Right.
I was expecting the certain character that never arrived. And then I was making excuses for neighbors that were mothers and fathers thinking, well, they're not strangers.
Right.
And I'm supposed to respect them. So there was this.
Yeah. Yeah. Where, you're taught, you don't call this person by their first name. It's an adult. It's Mr. this and Mrs.
You
that.
be respectful.
You show them respect and you show them.
I figured they knew better than me. Whatever they were doing, they were allowed to be doing because they are not strangers.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be respecting my adults.
Yeah.
So I figured they knew better than me.
If you're not told as children that that's not normal, then you think, maybe this is just the way it is. This is normal. This is what happens. So we need to do a better job. I mean, I almost think it should be taught in school.
Yes. That's one of the things I want to work on with other women.
Yeah, they have sex education. Why are we not educating children on this is wrong? This, when you get older and you're in a relationship with someone, this is appropriate. But outside of that.
And that's the fine line. They don't want to traumatize the children. And it's like, would you rather a predator traumatize the child?
Exactly. The trauma is going to be way worse and lifelong.
Right. My therapist was asking me yesterday, she was like, what would you rather? Would you rather someone express to you rape and violence? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
So that I had a point of reference when I start seeing signs of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you don't have to go into all the gory details with little kids, but you let them know no one is supposed to touch your private parts, and until you want them to when you're older.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, my mom was telling me stuff like that, but it just was not registering because of the only strangers are doing that.
Anything. My mom would never say a word about anything.
Oh no, my mom tried. God bless her. She was a bra burner and a liberator and pro-woman, and then also married to a man that was, old school Hollywood, thought he could have multiple girlfriends and a wife. And my mom, she had to deal with a lot of transition of my parents getting to really get on the same page at some point and be just about the family and raising their kids properly. So my mom was and is an incredible human being. And I love everything she attempted and tried to do. It was she was never trying to use me. I never was the breadwinner of the family. They never took any money that I made. It was always, this is towards your education and towards scholarships and grant money so that you can be whoever you want to be and not have to be tied to the expense of anyone else.
No.
I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And media. Thank God. And that scary thing too. How is Ghislaine allowed to own any media and her family and stuff? Yeah. It's absolutely terrifying what they are in control of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's going to come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And hopefully she stays alive long enough for the victims to see some sort of justice. Mm-hmm. And for everybody else involved. I mean, that's the really touchy part, that's how they've gotten away with it really for so long, is because there's so many people, so many famous people, high-powered, wealthy.
That's why I'm saying all the names.
Wealthy people who have taken part in this, and they will literally do anything to shut it down. So I applaud you for speaking out.
Thank you. I feel safer, literally everyone knowing my business.
Yeah.
It feels safer to me that everyone knows that I came out and spoke up, because I feel safer having the world know these people than just keeping it to myself and hoping an attorney hears me or this little person hears me. I'm blasting it everywhere at this point and letting the cards fall where they will.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what else to do. I've waited for the Calvary for 33 years and I'm the Calvary.
Yeah, no, you've got to be your own hero. And thank God. I really do. I thank you. I applaud you, because you coming forward with all of your stories, every woman that speaks out is going to empower another woman or young girl who might hear some of this and go, wow, yeah, that's happened to me too. I should speak out. Because so many of us wait until we're older, once we have our own kids, and then we have this epiphany.
Or midlife crisis, nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Which is what I had. We had that technology fail. I felt horrible that my business was just failing and that we lost footage to important dates. And we did wedding films, beautiful cinematic wedding films. And it absolutely devastated me. And it was at such a low point of that devastation is when I had a full visual flashback of being in that man's room. My room changed. It turned into his room. And 3 days later is when I tried to kill myself for the first time.
Yeah.
Because I had forgotten about it.
Yeah, you repress it. You repress it just so you can get through the days, so you can function in life.
I became a workaholic.
It's like one little pinprick and the bubble bursts. Yeah. And you're exposed, and it all comes flooding back. And my
mom equated it to being a burn victim. It's like all your skin has been removed.
Yeah. Well, I am so sorry, but I am so grateful that you are using your voice and using your platform, and that you're willing and able to come out and speak about it. And I thank God that you did not succeed in ending your life, because you're valuable, you're important. You
I was really pissed when I came to. Furious. I immediately started going at my wrist. I woke up and I was so bad I was still alive. I took my pinky and just started to cut, and they had to restrain me.
Oh my God.
I got to the point where I hate my memories so much that they have to come out. that have to come out in a book, in a podcast, in daily speakings. Otherwise, I crave death.
Oh my God. Just know and hold on to this, that your voice and your experiences will help other people.
Thank you.
And as long as you're on this earth, you have no idea the domino effect, how the butterfly effect,
I do.
of how your life, your experiences can change the trajectory of some other little girl's existence. So
all I care about is educating the future.
Yeah, we need you. We need women like you to speak out and be their voice until they can speak up for themselves.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the show and being so vulnerable and sharing so much. It's so very, very important. So I honor you. I appreciate you. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to be this raw and open about everything.
I don't have a choice. I'm so emotional.
Yeah.
I cry every day. I cry all the time. It's difficult for my son and my husband, but I've explained to them it's a process, and I'm purging and recalling years of repression.
Yeah.
Because they get depressed for me. They get nervous and scared for me, and they're like my watchdogs.
I bet. But so thankful that you're able to do that, because so many people just continue to push it down, and then it affects every relationship.
I work with a lot of survivors to speak up and feel confident and have your voice. And I get so many women that are, I'm so grateful you're so bold. I am bold because you're bold. I feel safer and stronger being bolder because you are. And I can't get over how many women I meet that are like, I've never even told my husband.
Yeah.
And it's like, I told my husband on my first date because I want you to know why I'm so fucking weird. I want you to know why I am going to probably freak out when you try to kiss me or touch me.
Yeah. And those are the things that people don't realize, that decades later. Yeah.
13 years of my marriage, frigid, absolutely terrified. And he's the sweetest man ever.
Yeah. I've heard that from so many of my friends. I can't even tell you. I really can't think of more than just maybe one or two friends who haven't told me that they've been sexually assaulted in some way. And I wonder if, those one or two just haven't come out yet, if they just haven't said it. But yeah, it's the vast majority. And I have a lot of friends, and every single one almost.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And in some of these Facebook groups, they're kids. And I reach out and how can I help you? Are you in touch with an adult that's actually helping you? Is anyone preying on you right now? You're a child. Is there anything I can do to help? Do you have a team? Because if I had Facebook when I was 13, the whole world would have known about this at 13.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're very strong. Like I said, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I know it's not easy, but it is so, so vital that we do things like this. So thank you so much, Molly. And I hope you'll stay in touch.
Oh, I would like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you spending so much time.
I appreciate you giving me the time. Thank you.
Of course. Well, you take care. And for everybody watching, I hope you found value in this. I hope that you'll share it. I hope that if you are going through something similar yourself, you will reach out, you will get help, you will, speak out, because there is nothing that you need to be ashamed of. It is not your fault. The other person, whoever is perpetrating this violence on you, and it is violence, they are the ones that should be ashamed. They are the ones that are in the wrong and that need to be locked up. So speak out, seek help, and I hope everybody is safe and well taken care of. So thanks again, Molly. And for everybody watching, as always, like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. So everybody take care. Thanks for watching Plants and Politics. The only way to take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks again.